Hello, welcome to Shad Life. So you might be wondering why I'm holding this frame in my hand. Well, I'm about to explain it to you. This was the frame I got in 2003. I searched high and low for a mountain bike frame that had a longer top tube so I could put a 50 millimeter stem on it and still have, my cockpit the same. Um, Back in the day when I got this frame, top tube lengths were literally uh, an inch and a half shorter for a size small or a size 16 inch, which is what this is. Back in the day, we always measured our frames this way and not by the length. Um, but it was a game changer for me. That was way back in 2003, and it took the mountain bike industry a long time to make the front end longer and shorten the stems. But now it's all too common, like we see here with my Spectral 125, uh, where we're running a 35 millimeter stem, which is even shorter than what I had on here. So when I first got this frame, I was running a 50 millimeter stem, and back then, everybody was running stems like this. Yeah. So you can kind of see where people thought I was nuts. Like, they were all running these long stems, even longer than this 100, 110 millimeter stems, way out there, short frames, things like that. And here I was, a longer frame and a short stem, and I absolutely loved it. So that's kind of the backstory on this. But I want to talk about this new stem that I got and some more kind of testing or experimentation that I want to do. Kind of still following this concept, but taking it to an extreme. So let's talk about it. So, what's going on here? Well, we can go old school, vintage, long stems, unless you're on a road bike, of course, right? Then this is kind of your standard 50 millimeter stem, and you'll see ranges from like 131, 132 to 50 millimeters are kind of common on bikes now. And then this is a 15 millimeter stem. Now, some people in the comments, when I posted a picture of this in the community chat, are mistaking this for the raised reverse stem that was from last year. That was all over YouTube reviewers and on Pink Bike and stuff like that. But this is actually a Rulezman stem. And this is a different concept. It's basically just a 15 millimeter stem. So why is it up like this? Well, the reason it's up like this, I'll show you on my Canyon over here. So if you look closely here and you see where the handlebar is there, and if you see the front of this stem cap, this is a 35 millimeter stem. The head tube is literally right under that cap on the edge. So we've only got maybe 3 millimeters before the handlebar runs into this fork steer. And so you can't go any shorter than like 31 or 32 millimeters. You'll see a few stems that are that length out there without changing something. So in order to do that, they took the clamp area and moved it up and back. So that's the only reason why this is raised. So it looks a little awkward from what we're normally used to seeing with a stem like this, but only because it's the only way you can get the handlebar back far enough and not run into the fork steer. So the way to make this so your handlebars aren't way raised up is we're going to have to give away on some spacers down here or use a lower rise handlebar to accommodate for this extra rise. But essentially that's the only difference. So this is a 15 millimeter offset from the center to where the center of the bar is to the center of the steerer. And that's how you measure your offsets, is from center here to your center of bar. So that is what's going on here. So I want to experiment with this stem on my Canyon over here. And the whole idea is to just play around with it and see if I like a much less offset stem. I actually don't know if I'm gonna like it. I actually really like this setup that I have right here, but I also like to experiment, and I kind of like the idea of the stem being closer to the rotational axis of the steer tube. Motocross bikes like that and motorcycles and things tend to be like that, and so on, and it's pretty cool to see a product like this. It's not common. I had to order it and get it delivered from Europe. It's kind of a one-off product. I don't think anybody else is making anything like this, just Rulezman. And so yeah, it's time to do some experimentation. The one thing is this is a 31/8 clamp, so I'm gonna have to get a 31/8 handlebar to put in here. So once I get a handlebar, I will swap it out. And the nice thing is I do believe I can easily just take this stem off with the handlebar, undo the grips and the brakes super easily, and the brakes and dropper and brakes and shifter are all connected. So it would be super easy to swap back and forth once I have a handlebar on here. And then I can probably take them both to a trail and do a direct comparison. So that's actually what my plan is I want to compare this to that, try to keep the handlebar height the same, and by doing so I'll find out whether a shorter stem reach has any advantages or not. I can think of a whole bunch in my head. I can think of some disadvantages and advantages, but what I'll do is I'll link a video in the description about this stem and kind of why having the steering axis with almost like zero offset is important. So I'm gonna butcher his last name, but it's like Dave Cruetti or something like that. He's the guy that came up with this concept, and so check the video out in the description. He goes over the whole thing about stem length. Of course, he goes to the extreme and shows like longer stems like this, and the whole idea is that your center axis is here. We'll just give you the white background, right? And when you steer, you're actually going left to right, not on the axis. As to where a stem like this, you're much closer to that center axis, so your left to right is very minimal. And actually, if you include the sweep of the bars, the back sweep of the bars, you're actually almost dead on zero offset, right? So instead, you're going forward and back with your hands, rotating on the bar, rather than going side to side. Now, of course, with the 35 millimeter stem, and then you consider the back sweep of the bars, you're not going side to side very much. You're doing it very subtly, right? But with this stem, you should be basically going perfectly in a circular motion with your hands and not a side to side motion. So that's kind of what I want to play around with. And what makes this kind of cool is that with bikes that are getting longer front ends, because now, like this bike has 15 millimeters more reach on it than the Salsa Rustler I replaced it with. And so putting this stem on, I'm going to reduce that by 20 millimeters. So really there's only, where my handlebars are, there's only going to be a 5 millimeter difference. And this is while standing. We're talking about reach. Reach measurement really takes effect while you're standing and riding, which to me It's the important thing. Seated in riding, you can always slide your seat forward and back on the rails and do things like that, but it's the standing, aggressive type riding that this stuff comes into play. So it'll be interesting to see if this stem, improves how this bike rides or makes it worse or whatever. So yeah, there you have it. And I don't have a lot more to talk about of kind of the advantages and disadvantages of something like this. And if you watch that video, he'll talk about chainstay length and how that affects things. My opinion on chainstay length is that if you make the chainstay length longer, it makes the front end harder to pull up because your feet and your cranksets are further away, your bottom bracket, from the rear axle, and you have to lift that, and that's a leverage. It's like a lever, and so the longer the chainstay, the harder the front end is to pull up. So his argument is that if you can get 50-50 even weight distribution between the wheels, then you can corner better. But I feel like you can do body shifts. You can shift your weight forward when cornering, things like that, to offset it. You don't really necessarily need the bike to be designed to do it for you, causing less desirable effects for like jumping and popping up the front wheel and doing more technical riding stuff. So that's a different argument. But let's play with this shorter stem and see how it goes, and then we'll see about the rest of the dynamics of the bike and how this may affect that and come into play. Appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.